Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you join me this evening. Welcome to tonight's session, which is called What's Holding You Back? And really, this is our opportunity to take a look at the self-imposed psychological attitudes or beliefs that cause us to underachieve. And a great topic for tonight. I think you'll really enjoy it. Hope to get a lot out of it. And would really like to get some engagement and some interaction. So I'll ask you while we're going through the slides, if you have comments, anything at all that comes to mind, feel free to type that in the chat box as well. I'll make sure to pick that up as I can. So what's holding you back? A closer look at the self-imposed psychological attitudes or beliefs that cause us to underachieve. Most people have areas in their lives where they would like to make some improvements. Is that true of you? Gosh, it's very true of me. Would you like to improve physically, emotionally, mentally, relationally, or financially? Well, I can't imagine any of us that wouldn't. And so if you can answer yes to those questions, then you're in the right place. And the question then is, well, what's holding you back? And I'll post today that there are two things holding us back from reaching our dreams. One is fear. And I want to take a minute and look at fear. You know, fear really is our inability to move forward. It's our inability to take the steps in the path of a direction that we want to go in order to avoid what we think is a scary situation, in order to perceive what we think is a scary situation. And another thing that might be holding us back is confusion. And so let's take a quick look at confusion. Confusion holds us back, meaning that we don't move forward. We're not able to move forward because of too much information. We've got information overload. We can't make a decision. Insufficient information. We just simply don't have enough information. Or false information, which is wrong information. We have information that's erred or flawed or incorrect. And so we can have too much information, not enough information, or incorrect information. All of those things can cause confusion. And fear and confusion can hold us back. Really, those are the two elements. When we look at opportunities in our life and we take a deeper look, a more intentional look at why we're not moving forward, it's going to be because of one of these two reasons, fear or confusion. And I'll share with you that confusion often causes fear, if you can relate to that. So Zig Ziglar, I love Zig Ziglar, and he's got a really great quote. And his quote is, fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. One of his many fantastic quotes. I just love this. And for me, fear does have two meanings. I can forget everything and run, which is usually what happens when I'm in fear or confusion, or I can face everything and rise. I can take a closer look and rise. And I have a choice in all of this. I just love that. Zig Ziglar speaks such words of truth, doesn't he? Such a wise man. So let's take a look at each one of those. Let's take a look first at forget everything and run. Well, honestly, lack of knowledge and wisdom equals run. That's a true statement. And so what's knowledge? Well, knowledge is information, understanding, or skill. Skill that we develop or acquire from an experience or education. That's knowledge. Information, understanding, or skill that we acquire or receive from experience or education. And so what's wisdom? Well, wisdom is knowledge, the information, understanding, or skill that we acquire from experience or education that's gained by having many experiences. It's knowledge of what is proper or reasonable, what makes sense, or is good judgment. And so if we don't have knowledge and we don't have wisdom, we tend to run. We tend to forget everything and run, which I think is just a really great way of phrasing what we're looking at today. In fact, Zig Ziglar, gosh, again, I just love him. In his July 14th, 2009 newsletter, he used to put out these newsletters, and it's a little dated, but the quote that I'm going to read to you is still relevant today. He wrote, "Fear has been correctly identified with the acrostic false evidence appearing real." I'm sure we've all heard that. I have definitely heard that before. False evidence appearing real. The truth is that if we think something is to be feared, the perception becomes the cruelest form of reality. That's his quote. Brilliant. In that same newsletter, a little bit farther down, he writes, "How do we overcome fear? First, we must learn to examine our fears." And, Joyce Meyer, another incredible mentor, coach, leader, someone I just really look up to and aspire to be. In her Battlefield of the Mind, Winning in the Battle in Your Mind, she says, the pathway to freedom begins when we face the problem without making excuses for it. Oh my gosh, does that hit home for anybody? It does for me. So that's forget everything and rise. The other thing we can do, as Zig Ziglar suggests, we have a choice. We can face everything and rise. And I love the word face, which to me means confront. And I think for so many of us, the word confront and confrontation, it has a bad connotation to us. I think that the word confront sort of got a bad rap because it has some negative tones to it when we think about confrontation. And most of us try to avoid confrontation. We don't like confrontation. But I think that's because we don't really understand what the word means. And I looked it up in the dictionary. And for those of you who know me, that's one of my favorite things to do because I have learned that I don't always know the right definition of words. And when I looked up the word confront, the definitions include to examine something. Examine. That's not very threatening. To oppose or challenge. Okay, to oppose or challenge. That's not very threatening, I don't think either. Another definition was to directly question something. Oh, that's even better. If I question something, it doesn't have to be in a mean-spirited way, it doesn't have to be in an antagonistic way or a suspicious way. If I just question something, I'm confronting it. Or finally, this one is my favorite, to deal with it in an honest and direct way. Wow, does that just open your mind to a whole new definition of confront? I can face or confront a situation by dealing with it in a direct and honest way. I love that. And so to ensure that I don't run, I need to take a look. Take a look. Take a look at what's holding me back. And so what do I mean by take a look? Take a look at what's holding me back. Well, one thing I can look at are feelings versus facts. And we're going to talk in a little detail about that here in just a minute. Another thing I can look at are excuses versus obstacles. A third thing I can take a look at are decisions and actions. And then finally, I can look at my span of control. So I can do all of these things as I'm examining or dealing with in an honest and direct way my situation that's causing me fear or confusion, my situation that's holding me back. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good. Yes, it makes sense. Great. Is this resonating with you? Does this sound like a really good topic to explore tonight? Absolutely. Okay, good. Excellent. Thumbs up. Yes, go, go, go. Excellent. I hear you. Okay. So these are the things we're going to look at tonight in a little bit more detail as we confront, take a closer look at what's holding us back. So let's start with feelings versus facts. This is really important. Feelings versus facts. Feelings and facts can really help us determine if a fear is rational or irrational. So if it's irrational, it's not based on fact or reason, but on emotion, emotional feelings. If it's rational, it's based on facts or reason and not emotions. That makes sense, right? So what's a feeling? Well, a feeling is an emotional state or a reaction. Some of us react to circumstances in our lives probably way too much than we ought to. We give a lot of power to things that happen to us by reacting. We have knee-jerk reactions and we respond to triggers in certain ways. And those are usually a result of feelings as opposed to facts, right? So facts are things, situations, incidences that are indisputable. They are information that is used as evidence. Facts are something that truly exists or existed or happened. Something that has actual existence. A true piece of information. Something that's real. So feelings versus facts. You know, one of my favorite things is to ask myself all the time, well, what are the feelings versus the facts? Is this a feeling or is this a fact? And one of the things that we want to do is take a look at the facts. And so let's just explore this a little bit more. So we've got facts, right? These are rational responses. And some examples of some facts might be based on fear, facts based on fear. I'm afraid my husband will eventually leave me for another woman because my first husband did. So that's a fact. My first husband did leave me. That's a fact. I can prove that. As an example, my first husband did leave me, but that's not why I brought that up. But that's an example. In a second example, an example would be, I'm afraid of dogs because my sister was attacked by a Doberman Pinscher when she was a little girl, and she has scars on her face from the event. That could be a fact. That's an incident that really happened. And it's funny that I put this down here because when I was a little girl, my sister was actually attacked, not by a Doberman Pinscher though, but by a German Shepherd. And thankfully, she does not have the scars on her face, but she did have that experience. That's a fact. And then a third example could be, I'm afraid of losing my house because I have had my house repossessed before. And so and I have not experienced this, thank God, thank you God. But if someone has lost something, had something repossessed from them and they've lost it, they could have a fear based on a fact. It can be proven if something was taken back. And so these are real rational responses. These are reactions that are based on fact, if that makes sense. And so now let's take a look at irrational responses. So irrational responses are based on feelings. And if I look at those same three examples, I can look at what some irrational responses would be. One would be, I'm afraid my husband will leave me for another woman because I often see him talking to other women, and I feel insecure when he does. So that's a feeling. I feel insecure when I see him talking to other women, but he's never left me before. And in fact, I've never been in a relationship where anyone has left me before. That would be an irrational response because it's based on feeling. If we take a look at the second example with the dog, an example would be, I'm afraid of dogs because I am intimidated by their loud barking and aggressive behavior. Well, that's not a fact. Not all dogs bark loudly and not all dogs display aggressive behavior. And intimidation is a feeling, not a fact. So I can feel intimidated by something, but it's an irrational response because it's a response based on a feeling. Nothing that's ever really happened to me. I've never been bitten by a dog. So I don't really have any facts to justify a fear that I might have. I may have the fear, but it's unjustified. Does that make sense? And then let's take a look at that, a third example, right? I'm afraid of being laid off at work, and I'm fearful about living under a bridge as a homeless person. Now, this was a real fear for me. There was a point in my life when I really felt this way, and it was unjustified. It was irrational. I have been laid off, but I have never lived under the bridge as a homeless person. I've never come close. And so I've never experienced anything that would indicate that that's a real possibility or a real fact for me. It could be a real fear, but it's an unjustified fear. Does that make sense? So it's so important that we get this right in our head. When we look at our situation and we have a fear or we're confused, we need to look at the feelings versus the facts. And we need to be really honest with ourselves about the feelings versus the facts. That's just so important. And so what I want you to do is take a quick minute, grab a piece of paper and something to write with, and write down a challenge that you have, an obstacle, something that you're afraid to move forward in. You're holding back in accomplishing something. It's probably tied to a fear. Write down the feelings and the facts about that fear. And what I tell many of my clients to do is take a piece of paper and fold it in half, draw a line down the middle, And on the left side, write down the fears, and on the right side, write down the facts. And I would even suggest that you do all of the feelings first. Write down all of the feelings. Don't try to do a feeling and then a fact and then a feeling and then a fact. Write down all the feelings and purge yourself of those. It'll be amazing to you what comes up. And if you give it enough time and sit and really assess your heart and dig deep into your memory and assess your psyche, you will start to identify a bunch of feelings that you might have had really deep that you didn't know you had. And I would suggest you capture those feelings and then flip the page over and start writing down the facts. And sometimes it's really easy to write the fact that directly correlates with a feeling. And so again, facts are evidence, they're truth, they're things we can substantiate, they're real pieces of information or real examples. They're things that actually happened or situations that really exist. Those are facts as opposed to feelings. So this is a really big step. This is something that I try to do whenever I'm facing a fear. If I'm not able to move forward to accomplish one of my goals or my dreams, I need to take a look at why. I mean, many times I am equipped, and many times the people that I need to use to help me are put in front of me. And for whatever reason, I still have a fear. And most of the time, it's an irrational, unjustified fear. And if I can focus on the facts, then I can overcome the fear and move forward. So again, take a real close look, write down your fear, and then write down the facts and the feelings associated with that fear. And then once you've done that, we want to take a look at excuses versus obstacles. Another great tool that we have, another great perspective we can take with our fear. So excuses are self-imposed justifications. To say something that, it's when I say that something's not required. Yeah, that's not necessary, or that's not needed, or I can do without that. That might be an excuse. It's when I make an apology for something. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't do that. XYZ happened. Yeah, I'm sorry I was late to this meeting. I was just late. Yeah, I'm sorry I was late to this meeting. I couldn't find my car keys. That's an excuse. Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't pay the bill on time. I lost my checkbook. That's an excuse. Another excuse is when we try to remove blame from something. When we try not to identify the real reason something happened, we make something up for it, or we disregard something as trivial. Again, yeah, that's not important. Yeah, that doesn't really matter. Oh, I don't have to do that in order to accomplish my goal. I don't have to finish this step. I could probably sidestep it. Those are excuses, right? So let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean by excuses. One example is, I won't find Mr. Right. I won't find Mr. Right because he doesn't exist. All the good men are already taken, don't you know? Well, that's an excuse because Mr. Right does exist. There are a lot of really great men out there, and all the good men are not already taken. I don't care what you've read or what you've heard. That's not a truth. That's not a fact. It's a feeling. But it's an excuse, right? I won't find him because. Anytime you're looking for an excuse, look for the word because, and it's usually the words after that one. Another one might be, they didn't invite me to join the organization because of my religion, my race, my sex, my hair color, my eye color, fill in the blank. Whatever the reason is, that's probably an excuse. It's probably not factual. They didn't invite me to join this organization because of something, and it may or may not be the case. A third example would be, I'm not smart enough to be a veterinarian because my parents always told me I was too stupid to learn anything new. Again, because. And I was always told I was too stupid to learn anything new. That's a feeling. That's not a fact, right? Anything after the because word. I won't find Mr. Right because he doesn't exist. All good men are already taken. He doesn't exist and all good men are already taken. That's a feeling. They didn't invite me to join the organization because of my weight. Well, that's a feeling. That's not a fact. See where I'm going with this? Interesting. Excuses. And it's hard looking at excuses. And we have become a culture that's really good at making them. It is really easy to make excuses for the reasons why we can't get something done or get something accomplished. And I know this is hitting home for some of you. I know this is just really challenging you at the gut. And I know today I'm going to say something that's going to offend someone. And let me just apologize in advance. My intention is not to offend anybody, but to help us expand our minds a little bit and get to a point where we can break the barriers, break free from the bondage of old thinking, old stinking thinking, as I like to call it, that's keeping us back, that's holding us back from doing the many great and glorious things that God has planned for us to do. So let's look at obstacles. Well, what are obstacles? Obstacles are real barriers, right? So excuses are self-imposed justifications. In case I didn't say that, let me say that more clearly. Excuses are self-imposed justifications. And obstacles are real barriers. And by a real barrier, I mean something that really gets in the way of accomplishing a task or completing a step or doing a project. These are objects that we have to go around or go over or go under. These are actual things that block our path. And so going back to the examples I used earlier, I'm afraid I won't find Mr. Right because I have real behavioral and attitudinal issues that prevent me from having healthy relationships with others. Well, that follows the word because, but that's a real obstacle. You know, there are many of us who have a hard time finding Mr. Right, and we want to blame it on the fact that Mr. Right doesn't exist, but in reality, it's because we have some baggage that we haven't tended to yet, and that's impeding our ability to have healthy relationships. A second example is they didn't invite me to join the organization because I talk too much and I'm often disruptive to the group. That might be a fact because I'm often disruptive to the group. So I have to look at the words behind because, and I have to assess, is this a self-imposed justification? Is this an excuse I'm making? Or is this a real barrier? I may talk too much, and I may be a disruption, and that may be a real barrier. And that may be something I need to work on if I want to get invited to join the group. A third example, I'm going back to the veterinarian again. I like that one for some reason. I'm not equipped to be a veterinarian because I haven't taken the schooling required for certification. That's a real barrier. That makes sense. That's a real obstacle. I can't be a vet if I don't go to school and learn how. I can't be a vet if I don't get certified in the state in which I want to serve in. And so that's a real obstacle. If my parents told me I was too stupid to learn anything new, they may have told me that, but that's not true. I know that about myself. That's not true for you either. We're all smart people here, but that's an excuse that we choose to hold on to. And again, I know this is hitting home for some of us. This is hard to take a look at those self-imposed thought processes that we've held on to, belief systems that we've agreed with for so many years that become so natural to our lives. They just become part of our everyday language. And then we start to believe it. And really, we're believing a lie. And so it's just so important that we take a look at, every time we make a statement, we need to look at the words that follow behind the word because. And that's where we're going to find the truth. The words that follow behind the word because is what we need to examine, what we need to confront. So we've been confronting our feelings and our facts and taking an honest look at them and questioning them. And now we want to confront and take an honest look at and question all of our excuses. And are they just excuses? Are they reasonable excuses? And I love the word reasonable. When I say reasonable excuses, it sounds like, well, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's good. I can see why that's an obstacle, but it's not a real barrier, right? Does that make sense? So we want to focus on the differences there, excuses versus real barriers. And so what I want to do now is give you a minute to look at your paper that you just wrote on, where you've got your feelings on one side, you've got your facts on the right side, and focus on those facts. Turn that paper so that you don't see the feelings. Just focus on facts if you can. And then I want you to write down all of your excuses for every one of those facts. Something's holding you back. Which one of those facts is holding you back? And then I want you to look at all of the words after the word because. Is it a self-imposed or self-justified excuse, or is it a real barrier? Is it a real obstacle? Is my ability to not accomplish something based on a financial resource I really don't have, or some piece of knowledge or training or some credential or certification that I really don't have that I need to go get? Or is it based on some opportunity that hasn't presented itself to me yet that I need to go seek? Those are things that we want to take a look at. Is it an excuse or is it an obstacle? So make sure that you take the time to look carefully at all of that. It's just so important to our success, really, our overall success. We have dreams. We have God-given desires and dreams, and they're real. And how fabulous that He trusts us with such grand desires and goals. And what a shame if we can't honor Him by accomplishing or reaching or achieving or fulfilling our heart's desires and our goals. And so what we want to do is take a deeper look. We want to confront our situation in God's honor. We want to confront our situation. Is it self-justification or is it a real barrier? So take the time to write that down. And then once we've done that, we want to take a look at what's holding us back and what we can make a decision about and what we can follow through with. And so making a decision and follow through. So a decision is a choice that we make about something after thinking about it. A decision is the result of deciding to do something. We say, I'm going to do this. We've made up our mind that this will happen. That's a decision. And we need to make appropriate decisions in our ability to be successful, in our ability to overcome what's holding us back. And then follow through is the act of completing the steps or a process for accomplishing a task, right? So let me give you some examples. Yeah, I'm big on examples. So one example is I decide to meet new people. I decide I need to meet new people. For whatever reason, I don't have enough friends. I don't have enough business partners. I'm not good at networking. I need to increase my social life. For whatever reason, I make a decision that I'm going to meet that objective by meeting new people. And then the follow-through is that I actually go meet new people, and I do that by joining clubs or organizations or groups where I actually meet new people, right? So I make a decision, and then I take action. I don't just think about the decision. I make sure I do something about it. Another example is I decide to quit my job and become a self-employed entrepreneur. I make a decision. This is what I want for my life. I don't want to work for corporate America anymore, or I don't want to work for a small business owner down the street. I want to work for myself. So I make a decision. And then my follow-through is that I take courses on business management and I learn how to run my own business. Those are the actions. I don't make a decision and then think about it. I don't make a decision and then talk about it. I make a decision and then I do it. So that's follow-through. Follow-through is not talking about. Follow-through is not praying about. Follow-through is not discussing openly with other people. Follow-through might include some research if we need to do some research in order to make sure that we understand what our needs are. But follow-through is taking action. And we might include prayer in our decision-making process. And we might include talking to others in our decision-making process. And we might think about things in our decision-making process. But those things are not follow-through. That's all stuff that happens before we decide anything. If that makes sense. I don't think anyone can argue with that statement. Oh, I just got an amen. Thank you, friend. Absolutely. And so you have decision and you have follow through, or, now, I do not mean to offend anybody here, or you have complacency. And complacency is not deciding or not following through due to laziness, lack of interest, lack of motivation, indecision, and an inability to just stick with it. Complacency. And this is going to be the tough pill to swallow for some of us. I can have grand dreams and hopes, and I can have these big desires of accomplishment for myself. But if I'm not making decisions about how to go about getting those things done, and if I'm not following through, then I'm probably complacent, which means I'm not motivated enough to do what I need to do. I'm too busy making reasonable excuses. I'm too busy relying on feelings and not facts. And I'm setting myself up for failure and believing a lie that says this is really important to me, because the fact is it's just not. If it's really important to me, I'm going to do what I need to do to get the job done, to move forward in accomplishing my heart's desire and my dream. If I'm complacent about it, then I should probably stop talking about it. If it's not a real dream, if I'm not hungry enough for it, then I probably need to find something else that I am hungry enough for. You know, it's not uncommon for us to take on someone else's dream for us and then wonder why we don't get very far in it. And it could be because we're focusing on the feelings and not the facts, and we're focusing on self-justification and excuses and not the real obstacles. And it could also be that we're complacent, which means that it's just not important enough to us to really do anything about. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow for some of you. Again, I apologize for that, but that is just really the way of it. It's pretty matter of fact. It's pretty cut and dry to me. And so what I want you to do is, take a minute to look at your facts. Take a minute to look at the obstacles of your facts. I don't want to focus on excuses because that's not healthy. And we can't do anything about that, but we can look at the obstacles, the real barriers. Take a look at the real barriers and then write down potential decisions. You don't have to decide anything right now, but just write down potential decisions. What are things that you can decide to do or decide not to do anymore in order to accomplish your heart's desire and your goal? And then what are some action steps you can take to do that? If I want to be a best-selling author and I've never written a book before, well, I probably need to write a book. And if writing the book is an obstacle, then I need to take a look at why. Is it because I don't have any writing experience? Is it because I haven't taken any writing courses? Is it because I haven't been to enough writers' conferences? Well, I can make decisions about those, and I can take action. Or is the reason why I'm not a best-selling author because my grandmother wanted me to be a best-selling author, but I never really wanted to be it, and so it's not important enough for me to really chase that dream. And I'm complacent. Or is it because I have a fear that nobody will like what I've written, nobody will like what I have to say, and so I've never written anything? Then I'm operating on feelings, and I'm creating self-justified excuses. And those self-justified excuses might look like, I'm too busy, the kids take up too much time, I don't have any quiet time in my house. There might be some excuses that we can really overcome, in which case it's an obstacle, or it might just be an excuse. And if we don't do anything about it, it's because we didn't really want it to happen that badly. Bad enough, I should say. Does that make sense? So write down potential decisions and actions. Don't make a decision today. And we're brainstorming here. You're writing down potential decisions. But we want to focus on decisions and actions that correlate to the obstacles that we just looked at. And then finally, what we want to look at is span of control. And by span of control, what I mean is what you can change versus what you cannot change. And the key is to focus on what's in your span of control. If it's in my span of control, I have a direct impact on it. I can change it. If it's out of my span of control, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. I can't affect it or influence it or have an impact on it. And so what's in my span of control include my attitudes, my behaviors, my initiative. It might include my calendar, my plans, my schedule. It might include my effort, my decisions, my actions, those are all in my span of control. I control all of those. The things that I cannot control, it's really simple. It's just other people, places, and things. Everything outside of me. Those are things I cannot control. And so it's really important that we focus on what's in our span of control. And so if you look at the decisions and the actions that you're going to take to overcome the obstacles that align with the facts that are the basis of your fear, then we're going to take a look at what of those decisions and actions are most in your span of control. And span of control can be gradient. You could have levels of span of control. I would say take a look at the one that have the highest span of control for you. What are those things, and go focus on those first. To me, that's low-hanging fruit. What's in my control is a whole lot easier to accomplish than what's out of my control. And so I would suggest that once you've identified the decisions and actions, you can quickly just circle the ones that are in your span of control, high degree, 75 to 100% within your span of control. The things that fall far outside of your control, you may just decide you don't need to conquer those because it's going to be impossible or too hard to manage, and it may or may not get you where you want to be. So the key here is to focus on the things that are in our span of control and then go do those things. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you have this kind of logic to go through, to work through in your mind, in your thinking, to get to the point where you're no longer being held back. So let's take a summary look at this, right? So the first thing is we want to identify the fear or the challenging situation. If something's holding us back, it's either fear or confusion. Most of the time it's fear, because confusion often causes fear. Amen? The second thing we want to do is separate the feelings from the facts. And I'm going to discard the feelings because they're irrational, unjustified, not factual. They're feelings, and so they're valid, but they're not what I want to use to make my decision about whether or not I go forward in accomplishing my heart's desire. And then I want to focus on the facts, and I want to assess my excuses and my obstacles. Everything that follows the word because, I need to confront, I need to look at honestly, I need to challenge and ask questions about. And I want to determine, is it a self-justified excuse or is it a real barrier and obstacle? And then I want to focus on the obstacles. And I want to make a decision and take action aligned to those obstacles. And here again, I'm just going to take a look at what all my different decision points are. And these could be decisions to do something or decisions to stop doing something. And then I'm going to take action. And then I'm going to focus on the actions, the decisions and the actions that are in my span of control. I'm going to focus on those things that I affect. With a high degree of confidence, I know I can get this done. That's what I'm going to focus on. That's what's so amazing. And when I do these things, I am facing everything, and that enables me to rise. Fear, face everything and rise. Zig Ziglar's comment, and it's a choice. I make a conscientious, intentional choice to assess my situation, to eliminate the natural thoughts that come into my head that I've lived with every day that tell me why I can't get something done. I rise above all of that because I take a look at this. I just take a closer look. I'm confronting it. I'm facing it. That's all I'm doing. I'm just taking a closer look. Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh. Oh yes. Oh yes. Blows my mind. Thank you for that comment. Love it. Oh my gosh. Wished I had heard this years ago. Right? That's what I'm saying. Love that comment. Thank you for sharing. Wow. Can't wait to get off this call and start my own assessment. Absolutely. When you get off this webinar, start your own assessment. It starts today. And it's amazing how you'll start to see progress in your goals and accomplishing your desires. It's just amazing. Face everything and rise. And let me just share with you a real life example that's really happened to me recently. I was actually at a conference with my husband. This was a month ago, I think. So it's really real and fresh for me. And we went to a business management conference. We went to a conference to learn how to put together business strategy and planning because I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to make a good living working for myself. And so I made a decision. That was my decision I made, and I'm taking action. And one of the action steps I took was to go to this conference so I could learn how to put together a business plan and strategy. And while we were at this conference, there was an exercise. And let me tell you, there were 50 people, not including the instructor and his staff. There were about 50 of us there. And he had us do an exercise. And the exercise was to break an arrow with our throat, and to do that without causing harm to ourselves. And I had never heard of such an insane suggestion in all my life. I thought it was a joke. Break an arrow with my throat without hurting myself. That was the goal. Made no sense to me. And then I started to realize that it was real. And people were getting up out of their chairs to go learn how to do this. And fear just took over. Oh my gosh. I was deathly afraid. I was afraid I was going to stab myself in the throat with that dang wooden arrow and die. And, I've watched way too many monster movies. I get that. But I suddenly had visions of blood just gushing out of my neck all over the carpet in the hotel conference room where we were, with people screaming and running about frantically while I died. That was this vision I had. I was afraid I was going to stab myself in the throat and die. And if you've never seen this done before, it's a wooden hunting arrow. And it's maybe, I don't know how long. Not quite a yardstick, maybe a yardstick long, so 18 inches long. And it's got a rounded tip on one end and feathers on the other. And you put the end with the feathers against the wall, and you put the rounded tip against your throat. So you're facing the wall, standing, and the rounded tip doesn't go in where the collarbone is. It's not going in the chest or the shoulder there. It's going in that very soft little dent in your throat. The most soft, tender spot you can imagine. And just feeling that tip hit my throat, oh my gosh, the fear. So I was overcome with fear, and I had all these feelings, and most of them were not rational. So if I step back and take a look at the facts, there were a number of facts. I was the last person to go, that's a fact, and 49 people did the exact same exercise before me, and nobody hurt themselves. Nobody cut themselves with the tip of the arrow. There was no blood. Nobody cried. There was no swollen necks. There was no redness. Nobody injured themselves. And my husband did the very same exercise just minutes before it was my turn. And he did not hurt himself. He did the exercise successfully, and I cried the whole time he did it because I was sure he was going to die. And my husband, he loves me, and he's very protective of me, and he does not let me do things that are going to cause me injury or harm. He doesn't. And he turned to me and said, yeah, you can do this. Now, I thought he was crazy because I went back to all my horror films and I was living in my feelings, irrational, unjustified. No one injured themselves, and every single one of them broke the arrow with their throat. And the other fact is that, the instructor is no dummy. He charges good money for these conferences, and he's got to carry an insurance in order to do that. And he would not facilitate a workshop that would put his business or reputation at risk. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Amen? He's just not going to do it. Those are the facts, but I couldn't face the facts. I started to look at them, but I was still in a lot of fear. But this started to make sense to me on some level. So then I had to look at the obstacles. Well, a real obstacle was that I had no knowledge. I had no training, no experience in performing this activity. Remember, knowledge is information and understanding or a skill that you get from experience or education. I had no knowledge of doing this. I had never been trained. I had never been educated. I had never experienced this before. I had no understanding of how to do this. That was my obstacle. But I made a decision. I know, believe it or not, I did. I made a decision. I decided to pray for success and God's blessing. Boy, I made a decision right then, and I did. I made a decision to pray, and I did. I also made a decision to fill out the required waiver because there was a required waiver. You couldn't participate in this without a waiver, which tells you, again, that this was kind of serious, but everyone else signed it, so I decided to fill out the waiver, and I did. Now, I was shaking, and tears were rolling down my face as I did this, so I was still in fear, but I was paying attention to the facts and looking at my obstacles, and I made a decision to fill out the required waiver. And then I decided to perform the activity. I got up there. I stood there with the rounded part of the arrow stuck in that very soft spot in my throat, and I did the whole thing through tears. I was shaking, and I had tears just nonstop through my face. And I think I was the only one who had tears, but that didn't bother me. I didn't mind if people saw me cry. And the span of control, 100% of it was mine. I didn't have to do the exercise. I could have said no. I could have walked out and gone to the bathroom at some point and just not been found. I didn't have to participate. This was all my choice. I had to be the one to suit up and show up and do it. And so 100% span of control. So I did it. So what happened? I know what happened, right? Oh my gosh. Well, I survived. I did not hurt myself. I barely had a little red spot. There was no swelling, nothing. And I changed my own limiting beliefs. That exercise forced me to reassess my thought process as I face goals and as I face opportunity to move through fear. It changed my limiting beliefs. I took action in spite of my fear. And wow, talk about faith and ability. I had so much fear, I was shaking and in tears. But I walked forward, and I did not let it incapacitate me. I did not let it stop me. I did not let it hold me back. I took action. And I improved my attitude about what I can do. I improved my attitude about my ability. And I gained a higher expectation of what is possible in my life. Because if I can do that, I can do anything. There's not much else I can't do. If I can do that, goodness sakes, world, look out. Here I come. And I started accomplishing more of my personal goals. It was a huge, huge, huge breakthrough. But I applied the exact same process, mental process, that I just took you through in order to get to the point where I could walk through my fear. It's okay to have fear. It's what I do with it that matters. And if I allow my fear to hold me back, I will have a lot of dreams that I never accomplish. I will have a lot of regrets. And I don't want to live a life of regret, and God doesn't want me to either. And so I'm going to face my fear. I'm going to face everything and rise. And the choice is mine. And the choice is yours. Isn't that awesome? I love that. So are you ready? Are you ready to invest in yourself? Time to invest in myself? I hope that's what you're thinking to yourself. Well, let me just share with you. I'm going to make an offer, but I want you to listen carefully to it. And don't jump ship yet. Don't hang up yet. You're going to love this. Special offer for those of you listening to this now. I want to help you take a closer look at the self-imposed psychological attitudes or beliefs that cause you to underachieve. I want to help you. And I'm willing to do that by offering you an MP3 audio recording of this webinar so that you can listen to it at your leisure while you're working out and driving to work and doing your chores and all that great stuff, so that you can keep it for yourself to listen to over and over again. And I promise you, you will want to, because there's some good teaching in this. And it's real, and it works, and I know it works. I just know it. I use it firsthand. I also want to give you a PDF worksheet that gives you a place to write down the steps that I took you through tonight, that allows you to identify your fear, that allows you to assess the feelings versus the facts, the excuses versus the obstacles, that allows you to make decision and take action and assess your span of control. I want to provide you with that. I also want to provide you with a 30-minute fear assessment session by phone. And this would happen after you completed the worksheet. We will go through it together. And this is where I get to help you confront what you know about yourself. This is where I get to help you question and look more closely at and challenge in a loving and gentle way. This is where I get to help you take a closer look. That's all we're doing when we're confronting. We're just taking a closer look. I want to help you do that. And I want to give you a digital copy of my new book, Face Everything and Rise. It's about this exact process that we're talking about. I'm really excited about it. I'm in the process of writing it as we speak. And so my honor to you would be to give you a copy of that book, and it's scheduled to come out in March of 2015. And regularly, I charge $297 for this, which is a really good investment because it's practical steps that you can apply yourself. And these steps apply to almost every situation. They will help you move through fear. They will help you with a fresh perspective. They will allow you to move forward, to push through all those things that have been holding you back all this time, so that you can accomplish your heart's desire and accomplish your goals and your dreams. And today's special offer, I want to offer this to you for $129. And so you get everything that we just talked about, an MP3 audio recording for you to listen to over and over and over again, a PDF worksheet to examine your fear and take action towards success, a 30-minute fear assessment session with me by phone where I challenge you, I help you by confronting your belief system, what you've written down. We're going to look at your excuses, your feelings versus the facts, the excuses versus the obstacles, the decisions and the actions. Now we're going to take a look at your span of control. And a digital copy of my new book, which is coming out March 2015 for $129. And I want you to visit this website, his site, theLookingGlass.com/fear-assessment-offer. I want you to go there, and I want you to sign up for this program. If this has spoken to you on any level, if this resonates with your spirit, if you know deep down that you have faced life with complacency, responded to life with feelings, lived with your own well-conceived, creative self-justification and rationalization, if you've decided that you're ready to set all that aside so that you can move forward and live the dream, live the dream. Live the dream that God has laid out for you because He has a plan for you. And if you're ready to embrace that plan 100%, move forward for your glory and His, then I want to help you do that. So I just invite you to go take a look at the offer, his site, theLookingGlass.com, fear-assessment-offer. And as soon as you register, I'll follow up with you by email. Give me about 48 hours, and we'll schedule our fear assessment session together. And I'll make sure you have access to the tools that you need that we discussed. I'll make sure you have access to the MP3 audio recording and the PDF worksheet. And then I'll invite you to celebrate with me my new book when it comes out in March of 2015. Does that sound good? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you for making that comment. $129 is very reasonable, very affordable. When you look at coaching sessions today or private counseling sessions and everything that you get, I'm going to cover with you a lot in a 30-minute period. I just covered with you a lot in our hour together. Has it been an hour? Oh my gosh. This is just expansive. This is expanding the mind to think about approaching life this way. And when we do, when we can all do this, I promise you, we will all be breaking arrows with our necks. Don't try this at home by yourself, though. Don't try this at home by yourself. Oh my gosh. Children, do not do this without being accompanied by an adult. Anyways, amazing, amazing stuff. I just cannot begin to tell you. And, you know, God's will for us is to live a life that is happy, joyous, and free, but he also has a plan for us, and he wants us to accomplish many great things. And when we can wrap our head around our ability to do that by partnering with him, when we partner with him, we suit up and we show up and we set aside all of those self-imposed beliefs and attitudes that have held us back and held us in bondage to failure. Wow. I just got goosebumps. Or as my friend Jamie would say, God bumps. Are you with me? Amen. Oh, thank you. Yep, I hear you too. Awesome, awesome. Anyways, I wanted to make that special offer to you. Please sign up. I would love to help you. I am equipped to help you. I am living this in my life today, and it's powerful. It's really powerful. So thank you for your time tonight. So glad that you could join me for our session of What's Holding You Back. And man, I'm excited. Let's go tackle the world now, shall we? All right, everyone. Thanks so much for your time again. I know how busy everyone is, and I appreciate that you chose to spend some time with me tonight. I'm very honored by that, and I want to honor you for taking the time to invest in yourself, financially or just with the time. Hopefully you've heard some really good nuggets tonight. I invite you to take those with you and go apply them to your lives. And then just, man, stand in awe and in anticipation of the miracles that are about to happen. All right, God bless. Cheers.